Hi, this is Richard Blade, the voice of SiriusXM's First Wave, and you're listening to the voice of 91 Reasons, Jeff Tucker. Totally awesome.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
It is election day today. The TV is awash with breathless reporters talking about going to vote. Now, I voted last week by mail, so it's all pretty tedious until the results come in. So instead of staring at the walls or going on the horrible nonsense that is social media, I will instead sit down and continue talking about the really important stuff. And of course, that's the films of Pixar, Part 4. So we're continuing our look at the roster of films put out by the Pixar studios. We're in the final leg here, folks. The final leg, the final output of Pixar. Interesting. They've had a shakeup. You know, this is right after the studio was bought part and parcel by Disney. They folded them in instead of just having a distribution deal. In the last year, we've seen John Lasseter ousted as the head of Pixar. He went on leave and then never came back. Apparently, he was very touchy-feely with the women at meetings. Never understood that. Don't get why people put their hands on other people. If you've listened to this show for any number of episodes, I've sort of self-diagnosed myself with low Asperger's. And I think part of that is I never know whether to shake hands, fist bump, or if they're coming in for a hug. And you know what? I always get it wrong. Someone will come towards me. People I've talked to every day. And I'll put my hand out to shake, and no, it's a hug, man. Oh, okay, yeah. And it's not that I'm being rude. I am letting the other person set whatever the boundary is on this thing. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know what they're looking for, and you can't offend me, so I don't really care. So I'm just waiting for them to make the movement there. So when you hear about somebody like Lasseter who puts his hands on people, and the main reason he was ousted was this went so far that the women who were in meetings with him had a move that they did to block themselves from him, and it was called the Lasseter. Like they made a move and talked among themselves and put it together how to keep old Johnny from touching you. And that's unfortunate because from the beginning, Lasseter's been a hardworking genius, making some of the most immersive, fun, touching, animated films of all time. And he did it to himself. There's no apology that can get you out of this. Dude, you did it. You're out. Thanks for playing. He's also the guy, whether you probably know this because you're into pop culture like me. He's also the guy who saved California Adventure from the wrecking ball. There was a plan at one point, and I know people are, oh, no, they were never going to do that. I read it, and I think I read it on Mice Age before it turned into Mice Chat completely. But Mice Age used to have these great articles by Al Lutz, and I was, I couldn't wait for new articles from him. And he was breathlessly always talking about what was coming up, what had been canceled. He broke all the Star Wars Land news when it was going to be in Tomorrowland, when they were going to build Ewok Village and speeder bike races and stuff that boggled the mind. I'm sure what they're building is great, but there was some amazing stuff back in the day. And part of that included gutting California Adventure and making it a shopping and dining experience with, are you ready, with living quarters. They were going to put apartments in DCA and let people live there. They were going to keep Tower of Terror. They were going to keep California Screamin', and they were going to keep Soarin', put walls around them and charge $5 a ride or something. But The rest of the place was going to, it would not be a theme park anymore as we know it. And Lasseter was not going to let that happen. He was very keen on saving the park. And of course, saving the park meant putting 3 or 4 times as much money in it to fix it as it did to initially build it. Because the Cynthia Harris, Paul Pressler era, they built DCA on the cheap as they could make it. They cut corners everywhere. If there was an off-the-shelf ride that can be modified, boom. They're the ones that put in a farming exhibit. Like you're going to the county fair. A 4-H exhibit, I was there. I went to DCA. I took my kids. It's the park they prefer because that's the one they grew up with. Because we used to go to DCA a lot because, are you ready? Why not? It was empty. There was never anybody over at DCA. There was never a line for anything back when it first opened. But Lasseter leaves behind an amazing legacy, tainted at the end by his own behavior. But there's no denying the work that he put out. It's the same thing with Kevin Spacey, You can shun the person, but you can't deny what came before. So let's get into it. We left off. We had just attended Monsters University. I was not a fan of that film. I'm looking down the list all the way to their most recent release of Incredibles 2, and I'm not seeing much of anything that I enjoyed. And I don't know why that is. Have I grown up? Have I matured so far that I don't get the Pixar message anymore? Is it my fault? I'm perfectly willing to concede the point that it's my fault that these movies don't affect me anymore. But they don't. I watched Inside Out 2015. I watched it with Josie. We watched it together. We enjoyed it, but the more you think about Inside Out, the faster it falls apart. And I have to say, this is a cloying, overly sentimental piece of rubbish. What a terrible film, and what terrible messages it sends. The little girl in it runs off away from home, and her emotions. Now, here's the thing. I remember watching Herman's Head. We've all done improv exercises where we're pure emotion. Like, I know what they're trying to do. I totally get all that. The problem with Inside Out is, as Riley is moved to San Francisco, as she is forced away from her friends, and nothing goes right, so eventually she runs away, we're treated to a look inside her head at her emotions who are running her body, right? And there's supposed to be, how do I put this? There's supposed to be subtext to the whole affair. We're supposed to see Riley on the bus leaving and sadness taking over because Riley is sad that she's leaving home, even though she has done this to herself. Everything that the emotions are doing are supposed to have a real life counterpart. And in Inside Out, they don't. They just don't. And the reason I say that is I hung on for all of Inside Out. And there's two scenes in the film in particular that indicate to me that and there's no fault to them. They wanted to make a good movie, but they didn't want to make a deep movie, even though this looks like it should be a very deep movie. You're talking about a young girl. She's coming of age. She's alone. She feels like nobody understands her. We've all gone through that. And they're trying to use these colorful characters to explain why we feel the way that we do, So the first scene is when she leaves, when Bing Bong gets left behind in her pit of forgotten memories, right? There's a rocket sled and Bing Bong is being left behind, And it's not in the world of Riley's mind. The action beat is they're using a rocket sled to zoom out so that Riley doesn't forget these memories, right? The subtext is Riley is growing up, and Riley is putting away childish things in favor of more mature emotional problems. And there's no room in there for an imaginary friend. But we never see Riley like in her room, and maybe we do. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it didn't imprint on me that we don't see Riley putting her toys away. I'm deciding to grow up. We all make that move. You know, in high school, all of my Star Wars toys were put in the garage in a box, actually in a big cabinet. And I decorated my room with posters of Freddy Krueger and the Ghostbusters and Heather Thomas. But that was a conscious effort. I am becoming an adult on my own terms. And in the context of Inside Out, Bing Bong isn't getting left behind through an action sequence. Bing Bong is being left behind because Riley is growing the heck up. And she's more interested in her current problems than anything that this wacky, candy-spewing elephant thing had to offer. And as sad as that is, that's the truth. But I don't think that really comes through in the movie. The subtext might be there, but it's very subtle. Right? It's very subtle because they just sort of find Bing Bong, wandering around through her memories. Every once in a while surfacing, right? But when Bing Bong becomes part of the adventure, does that mean she's sitting next to Bing Bong on the bus? Like you remember Bing Bong, my old friend, but now you don't see that part. And then when they get on the train of thought and that gets derailed and the islands are crashing, I kept waiting for the really clever way they were going to get sadness and joy back into the control room so that they could take over, right? Because right now Riley's angry, she's disgusted, and those are the things that are taking over, right? And they need the balance of her emotions back in the control room to take over. And I thought that there was going to be and again, review the movie you got, not the movie you wanted. But there needed to be this golden bridge, right? Sadness and joy are there, and they've lost all hope. The Goofy Island crashed, the Parental Trust Island crashed, and then suddenly there's this golden bridge that appears, and they just walk back to the control room. Why? Because Riley has decided to grow up and get her emotions under control and do the right thing. Doesn't that make more sense than what we get in the movie is Joy tricking her imagination into creating 1,000 fake boyfriends? Like, in the context of the real world, what is that happening? Is Riley having a bunch of sex dreams, and that's what gets her emotions under control? Because it has to have a real world counterpart for the analogy to make sense. It can't just be randomness. It can't just be, here are some boyfriends, and then they're going to fall over into a bridge and get them back to the control room. Because you're in Riley's brain. And those things that they're doing up until this point have all made sense. Bing Bong disappears, whether they show it or not, Bing Bong disappears because Riley's growing up. Parental Trust Island crashes because Riley has lied and run away. Goofy Island has crashed because Riley is too serious for that kind of nonsense anymore. So what the hell does 1,000 fake boyfriends mean? That's the part that got me, and I was like, you have a chance here to make something really profound. Not just something to sell toys or with bright colors that look great because we're wearing our 3D glasses. First and foremost, and Pixar's the king of this, first and foremost is make an astounding story. Doesn't matter if it's cinematic. Doesn't matter if the finale is somebody just looking up and making a decision. If Riley just looks up and decides, what am I doing? And she does this in the film, but it's not the way Jeff wanted. I get that. But some sort of steel, golden, rainbow, whatever bridge that just says, I've decided on my own to get my emotions. I'm going to control my emotions. They are not going to control me. Isn't that the whole point of the movie? I thought it was. I really did. And other than that, there's a couple of things that really bug me about it. I hate the sequence where they go into the parents' minds and show you what's going on. You know, the dad's an idiot who only thinks about sports, and the mom is thinking about some guy she met on vacation. These are such sitcom tropes, you know? I'm so sick of the dad being an idiot. You know, I'm a father of 3, and I'd like to think that I'm not an idiot. You know, I know how to cook. I know how to drive a car. I know how to change a diaper. I know how to take a kid into a restroom, pull down the little koala care table, and change a diaper. You know, that idiot dad stuff was perfected and shut down with Mr. Mom. Michael Keaton, the great Michael Keaton. Written by John Hughes, right? That's all gone. That's all done. But you wouldn't know it if you turned on a TV. Every commercial, the father is a complete buffoon. And I blame my hero. I blame Homer Simpson. Because we've accepted that, you know. But in the context of The Simpsons, that's what works for them. But The Simpsons doesn't reflect all of reality. Just little sharp bits and pieces, right? But every commercial, the guy has no idea how to do things, and the woman is there to put her hand on her hip and go, oh, let me show you. And I don't know why that is. I thought, to me, men and women are equal. My wife does her share of things around the house. I do my share of things around the house. And neither one of us is an idiot. And yet, commercials and movies like Inside Out would have you believe that the father he's sitting and having dinner and all he's thinking about is sports. And the wife is only thinking about having sex with this man she saw on vacation. And she's like, I can't believe I married this guy. And you're like, well, you have a child with them. What happened to being happy? What happened to making it work? You know, are we going to see a sequel to Inside Out where the mom runs away? And when she gets to the island, she finds out that guy in the Inside Out universe is just as dopey as her husband was back home? I hope not. The commercial that really got me, I saw it at the movies. It played before Infinity War. And it was a guy, it's a car, they're always car commercials. It's a car commercial. The guy walks out and he doesn't have his keys. So he has to call his wife, who has a thing on her phone that can unlock the car with an app because she's smart. He doesn't have the app on his own phone. I mean, he could because he's got his phone because he calls his wife and it's a phone app. But she's like, ugh, let me do it for you once again. Let me open the car door. And the gimmick is she's an astronaut. And she's on a spacewalk. So not only is he a buffoon who locks his keys in his car, but his wife, who's a lot smarter than he is a freaking astronaut. So I ask you, why would a woman that intelligent marry a man who can barely function? To sell cars, Jeff. Oh, of course, to sell cars. You know, I'd prefer that nobody was an idiot and that men and women would be portrayed as equal partners, especially when it comes to raising children. You can't raise kids with an idiot. I mean, you could, I don't know how those kids are going to turn out. We can find out. Rachel watches a lot of that 16 and pregnant crap on MTV. But Inside Out makes that same stupid sitcom joke. And it was just and that's early in the movie, and I'm like, this is dumb. This is really dumb. Now this movie would have a sequel. It would be like a movie that I actually enjoyed from the 80s called Drop Dead Fred. It's not a great movie, but it is about a woman whose childhood imaginary friend comes back into her life when she has a midlife crisis. If they were going to make a sequel to Inside Out 20 years from now, when Riley's, she doesn't get the big promotion, she doesn't get the corner office, her husband's cheating on her, and suddenly Bing Bong shows up to restore her faith in being a child. Like, I can see that. I don't know. But, if you enjoyed Inside Out, I'm sorry. It's not my thing. Whatever. That's not that good a movie. It's weird because it's a silly movie masquerading as an intelligent movie. Like, it wants to be so cerebral, and instead it really is just another version of Herman's Head, which was a show on Fox. Okay, the same year they released The Good Dinosaur. This is a movie that I didn't see. This is a movie that hardly anybody saw. It was Pixar's first box office bomb. Its first film to not recoup its production costs. Rachel and Josie went and saw it. They said it was enjoyable. I did not see it. I'm with a lot of people. It's about a dinosaur and a little caveman kid. And I guess the dinosaurs are smart and the kid's stupid. And I have no idea. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to, Finding Dory. Now, I gushed. I think Finding Nemo is fantastic. I love the movie Finding Nemo. I hated Finding Dory. What a terrible disservice this movie does to children. Dory's a character that didn't need a backstory. She's great the way she is in that first film. She's forgetful. That's funny. She's loyal to her friends. That's fantastic. She's hysterical and a true friend. And when Marlin needs a true friend to help him find his son, Dory's there. And she never wavers. And she's always positive. So this is one of those weird movies where we're going to give a character a backstory who didn't need one. And they do this all the time. They did it with Darth Vader. They did it with Hannibal Lecter. They're doing it with Willy Wonka, of all characters. And when are they going to realize they don't need to do this? And I know, what am I talking about? Finding Dory at the time was the #1 animated film of all time. It made gobs and gobs of money. For me, it has weird, bizarre leaps in logic that, as a screenwriter and as an adult human, I have trouble getting past. I can believe almost anything in an animated movie. Talking animals, check. We're on another planet, check. We're inside a little girl's head, check. I'll believe anything. But here's the thing, and I've always said this. Once you set up the rules of the universe, you have to abide by the rules of that universe. And if you break them, you've lost me. You have completely lost me. And Finding Dory takes place mainly in an aquarium theme park, right? Like Aquarium of the Pacific. And I was very curious, how are you going to get the fish from one place to another? That's always the problem. The fish have to be in salt seawater or they're dead. They can flop out for a few seconds, but the clock is running, and if they don't get back in the water, they're dead. That's the limitations of having fish as your main character. And you have to work through that. And as a person who writes screenplays and writes novels, I'm constantly putting my characters in situations that seem impossible to get out of. Because when you do get them out of it, and sometimes I have stopped writing for a month to figure out how to get them out of a predicament. Because when you do get them out of it, it is so satisfying for both you, the writer, and the reader. And there are multiple moments in Finding Dory where our fish characters jump into buckets of liquid that are not seawater. They jump into a fountain. There's no reason the fountain would be seawater. They jump into a display case for children's toys that work underwater that would in no way be seawater. And the final straw is they actually jump into a cleaning bucket with a mop that you know would have bleach or Pine Sol or floor cleaner, and our characters would instantly die. So Pixar, who agonizes over stories, I know that they do. They for Monsters Incorporated, they threw away an entire movie to start over, and they let this get by. Nobody said, you can't have them jump into a mop bucket because they're dead at that point. And this is a movie where I'll buy that the octopus drives a van. That, to me, that's fine. The octopus is driving a van, no problem. The fish jump into a mop bucket. No, they're dead. They're dead. Plus, this movie does the same thing that Toy Story 3 did. I think it might even be the same children. When the toys in the movie are subjected to playroom and the nursery, the pre-kindergarten room, they nearly escape with their lives. They almost are dead. They show the touching pool where the fish are touched by fingers, and this is seen as a horrific get out or you're going to die moment. And I don't know why you would do that in a children's movie where you're trying to get kids to appreciate sea life and want to save the environment and want to save the clownfish, right? So you show this horror sequence that most children are going to find themselves in. Do they get to the aquarium now and go, oh, I'm not going to touch the fish? And the guy at the aquarium goes, no, it's okay to touch the fish. We wouldn't let you put your finger in the fish tank if we knew it was going to hurt the fish. It's totally okay to touch the fish. No. I saw Finding Dory and the fish hate it. That was a cartoon. Yeah, but, I'm terrified now of hurting the fish. Why would you take that away from kids? That's very strange. Why would you take that away from the kids? Going to the aquarium and interacting with sea creatures is part of growing up. I mean, everybody gets to do that here in America. We all go to the aquarium. I just took my family to the one at Mandalay Bay. There is a touching station. My family was there 45 minutes to an hour. And when we went to the next room and discovered that it was about to end, we went back to it. Because it's fun to interact and experience new things as long as nobody's getting hurt. As long as the fish isn't going to hurt me and I'm not hurting the fish, what's the problem? And instead, in Finding Dory, it's this horrible sequence of bang, these big fingers coming down, and the children are unsupervised, bang, and they're coming in the water, splash. Oh my God. And I thought, on paper, it must have looked fine. And when they're animating, it must have been fun. But think of the final step in that process is children watching it and then going and saying, well, I won't do that. We've watched that movie Blackfish destroy SeaWorld. And the weird thing about SeaWorld is they've done so much good for the ocean and the life in it. completely overshadowed by a single film. People are very swayed by that. Children especially. One film is taking Apu out of The Simpsons at some point. And I'd hate to think that this movie, Finding Dory, even affected one kid who's like, no, I'm not going to do that because I've seen the movie. Yeah, but in the movie, the octopus drove a car, a van. So, I get it. I get it. Jeff, you're reading way too much into these movies. No, I'm just telling you how I feel about them and telling you why I don't like it. You know, I felt bad for the tank gang at the end of Finding Nemo because I thought, well, they're in those baggies, they're going to die. But I just assumed a needlefish, blowfish came by and popped the bags and they're fine. That's just how, there's a way to deal with that. But having the fish jump into a mop bucket they should have just floated to the surface sideways and the guy goes, hey, you guys ready? Oh, well, that's the end of that. Guess we found him floating up in the tank. All right, after that, Pixar released Cars 3 for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm sure it's to sell toys, because Cars 3, the Cars brand, is now a lifestyle brand. It's one of those Star Wars, it's Star Wars, it's Harry Potter, it's bedspreads and themed drinks at a theme park and toys of all shapes and sizes. And we sure could use a few more characters to make us toys. So Cars 3, thank you. I didn't see it. I don't care to ever see it. I've lived enough with Lightning McQueen in the first film, and I remember seeing the red carpet on the news for part 3 where they were talking, well, how does it feel to be in the new Cars movie? And like, oh, it's great. It's a story about a millennial car who teaches Lightning McQueen a lesson. Like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I'm totally done. Thank you. I don't need to see any more Cars movies. They've been saviors of small towns, secret agents, and now they're being taught a lesson by a younger millennial cars. I don't know. I'm just talking because I haven't seen it, and I don't care to see it. Okay, Coco. We are up to Coco. I watched Coco with Josie. Boy, Coco is a beautiful looking movie. It is undeniably one of the most gorgeous films ever put on the screen. The colors, the way the afterlife looks. The message of this movie is great too. Remembering your relatives, remembering those who came before you, the whole Dia de los Muertos holiday. Gorgeous, beautiful message. The music's good. Like I said, the colors, the atmosphere. Gorgeous, gorgeous film. Only had one problem with this movie. It's a pretty big one, though. And the problem is that I don't like to think of the afterlife as having the same class system as mortal life. When you cross over to the other side, it should be, honey and ambrosia for all. And instead, in the context of Coco, there's a currency in how well you're remembered. And that currency translates to how you live your life in the afterlife. And there are still people in the afterlife who lived a good life and yet now live in squalor, in little huts, worse than they lived on when they were alive. And I know it's a shortcut to tell a certain story, that Ernesto de la Cruz is beloved by the world, so in the afterlife, he's the richest man there is, and there's that gorgeous trolley that goes up to his house, and it is fantastic, except for the idea that at some point, aren't we all equal? Don't we cross over to the other side and become a being of light? We don't need material goods. There are only answers, no questions, and everybody is welcome to the arms of the afterlife, whatever savior you believe in, and we're all equal in that light. Isn't that the message that we want? Again, I know we're telling a story. In the context of that story, we have to see the shift and the balance of power tip. I totally get that. Beetlejuice does the same thing. You commit suicide, you are a civil servant in the afterlife. Good luck. Everybody else is stuck haunting the place that they died near, what they called home. Those are their rules. I get it. At least Barbara and Adam Maitland were able to spend eternity with each other, who they loved. So I guess if you die alone, you're waiting for your partner to die, or if your partner moves on, you get nobody. It's weird. I want to cross over into that. I mean, the afterlife of Coco is gorgeous. I want to cross over and just everybody there is beautiful. They're all skeletons, but they're beautiful. And it's like, we've been waiting for you. Thank God you're here. Now you're complete because you're in eternity now, and you're here forever, and we're all equal under the eyes of the all-seeing, all-knowing being. But Coco's a movie, and you have to tell a story. I totally get that. I enjoyed Coco. I thought it was a pretty darn good movie. Other than that weird afterlife nonsense. I love the music. I love, like I said, the message of it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous film. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here with Incredibles 2, the latest release from Pixar. I'll admit, I watched a bootleg of Incredibles 2, so I didn't get the highest picture quality, but it did suffer from some of that weirdness. I love these characters. The Incredibles is my favorite Pixar movie, so I love these characters. So watching Mr. Incredible have trouble taking care of Jack, and I know Jack's not a normal kid, so it's a little different than Mr. Mom, but there was some of that of Mrs. Incredible is now the breadwinner, Mr. Incredible stuck at home, and he's got to figure out how to raise children on his own and make dinner, and he's snapping at the kids because Mom's not there. Like, again, can't we just raise children equally? When my kids are with me, we have a great relationship that I'm sure is different than the relationship they have when their mom is with them. We each have different boundaries and different things that set us off, right? But in the end, I love my children enough to be the father that they need to be, and not some doofus. And I'm not saying Mr. Incredible's a doofus. I'm just saying there was that hint of that in the movie, a little bit. Incredibles 2 did set it in a time frame with all the cars looking a certain way, and it's definitely a period piece. It's Incredibles. It's still a pretty darn good movie. Brad Bird is a animation genius. I have no qualms with Mr. Bird. May he make 1,000 more movies, okay? So, hey, we're wrapping it up with that Pixar stuff, man. What do they got on tap? Toy Story 4 is coming next summer. I'm not sure we needed a Toy Story 4, but I have enough faith in the filmmakers that I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Word has already leaked out that Tim Allen had trouble doing his lines for the climactic scene at the end. Tom Hanks went on record as almost saying the exact same thing, that whatever happens to Buzz and Woody at the end, that they both choked up and had to take a moment before they could finish their scenes. We'll see Buzz Lightyear in the Disney release Ralph Breaks the Internet this month. There's a cameo with Tim Allen doing Buzz Lightyear. Here's my prediction for Toy Story 4. I would like to jump ahead in time. I'd like to see Bonnie as an adult who became a toy collector. And, oh, you know what? Let's just spin a crazy movie here. Bonnie grows up. She's a toy collector. Maybe she runs a collectible toy shop, reuniting people with their childhood toys, right? Because that's what you do when you go into a collectible toy shop. You're like, oh my God, I need that toy from my childhood. So she does that. She's the good version of Al from Al's Toy Barn. because the toys that are going home are going to be loved more than they've ever been loved and revered their whole lives. And she has grown up and married Sid. Sid's not an idiot. Sid was just a guy who liked to modify toys. I like to modify toys. It does not make me an idiot. She marries Sid, who customizes toys. He takes toys that are at the end of their life, that have been destroyed and mangled, and he gives them a new life and sells them on the internet as one of a kind. So Bonnie and Sid are married, and Andy comes in as an even older adult to buy Buzz and Woody back for nostalgia purposes, to give to his children, because he has kids now. And the end of the movie is Buzz and Woody in the arms of Andy's now grown-up child, and they're at Andy's funeral. And we see the whole thing circle up. Yeah, it's a little morbid. It's a lot morbid. But talk about full circle and Buzz and Woody going, we loved Andy. He was our friend. I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And I'm sure that's not what the movie's about. They've already said the movie's about Woody reuniting with Little Bo Peep. Maybe he reunites with her at the collectible toy shop. Wouldn't that be great? You could have cameos then, because think about this. Because now that Disney owns Star Wars, they could have a whole sequence where they meet the Kenner Star Wars figures. Oh my God. That would be the greatest thing ever. You know, Darth is like living in the Kenner 1978 Death Star, and Luke's driving his spring-loaded land speeder, you know? Yes. That's what I want. That's my dream. I'm stamping it into this episode, and that's what I want. And we'll see you next summer when Pixar releases Toy Story 4. I have high hopes for it. I'm a big fan of that franchise. I love those characters. I love them because the geniuses at Pixar have made some of the greatest movies of all time, because they usually always start with story first. Story first. Awesome. All right, hey, we're wrapping up the Pixar journey. Thanks for going along on this journey with me. We didn't have as much success on the DreamWorks journey, which I will be re-uploading now that we've changed servers. So look for those episodes at some point. I did go through the whole DreamWorks catalog. I just read Shrek is going to get reboot, so we can't even escape Shrek. With the same voice cast. They're not even going to change anything. They're just going to redraw it for a different generation. Boy, looking forward to that, said no one ever. I am Jeff Tucker. Thanks for listening. I hope you voted today. It doesn't matter who or what you voted for, as long as you voted, because that's what counts. And I respect everybody's beliefs and opinions, because that's the point of this show, and this show is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
Laugh it up, fuzzball.